are. I am Mack McKelvey.
And I am Heidi Keele.
And this is season 2 of the SUM podcast. We've rebranded. It is called the SUM Disruptors.
You want to know what it takes? This is a place you're going to find out.
That's a fact. What you're going to find out, you're going to find out. All right, let's start with something constructive. People don't know who we are. I'm going to do a formal introduction. This is the last time I'm going to be formal. We're going to drop all formalities after this. We're on video, for God's sake. And
I'm sharpening my bow tie. Do you see?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, are you ready? Everybody
Yes.
listening, I'm going to do a strong introduction so that you out there will believe that I have something that I can contribute to this. Again, my name is Mack McKelvey. I am the founder and CEO of the Startup Marketer and Salient MG. I've got 20 plus years of B2B tech marketing experience. I'm on 3 advisory boards, including Hello Brand, which is an AI company, and Real Atom. I'm on the board of trustees of Creative Spirit. I am an ambassador over at Hunt Club. I'm a member of the AI Marketers Guild. I'm an ACP mentor where I mentor servicemen and women who are returning from military service and entering the private sector. I am on the Fast Company executive board, and in a nutshell, 20 plus years, B2B tech roles, investor, speaker, board member, contributor, awards judge. And in the past 14 years, I've worked with well over 100 startups. I'm the host of the Cred podcast, and now, very excited to say, I'm also co-host of the SUM Disruptors Podcast with Ms. Heidi Keele. And I will drop my pretenses now and do my real introduction because Heidi and I are fans of the Real Housewives franchises on Bravo. And look, everyone needs a guilty pleasure. That happens to be mine. And it happens to be Heidi's, one of the things we bonded over. So I've done an introduction for myself, Real Housewives style. Get into character. I may have 2 names, but don't get it twisted. I know exactly who I am. Thank you for laughing.
How do I follow that? I feel like I'm like, ooh, oh.
Not true.
This girl right here, and let's just have a conversation for a moment. Her hair is kicking, even under that hat.
Thank you. Well,
even
listen,
under that hat.
So I did this for us to rep our merch. This is awesome, who we'll talk about later. You're wearing the Startup Marketers, the SUM hat. So Heidi, you introduce yourself so we can jump in.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, wait, I got to read I'm going conservative first, which
for 1 minute.
All y'all that know me, I am not conservative. So give me just a moment here. Founder and CEO of the Lioness Collective currently. I am advising several clients and customers, if you will, but most notably the Foundress, which is an amazing entrepreneurs organization for women out here in the great state of Arizona, where I'm a recent transplant to the desert. And I'm also working with Naked Rebellion on an advising perspective. That's a cool story that we will tell later, is about that company very specifically. But what do I do in my free times? For those of you out there that have been involved in marketeer land for a long time, I am a state and local judge and mentor for the DECA organization, Distributive Education Clubs of America. AKA an organization that grows up individuals in high school marketing programs. And I give my time there because they still refer to PR as publicity, Mac, in textbooks. They still call it publicity. Spent a long time. I've been in corporate America, had in and out of my own consulting practice. Spent over 20 years in corporate America, AKA the Lion's Den. And in that time, I've advised, I've run big teams and small teams, 2 pennies in the marketing bucket and lots of peanuts in the marketing bucket, influenced a lot of revenue in my career and some direct touches on that revenue as well. And really just excited to be sitting here hosting this with you, Mac. And I feel like I just blubbed the heck through that professional bio because anybody that knows me, that's just not my bag. But so I'm way more excited about my Real Housewives tagline.
Okay, let's hear it.
Which, by the way, took me a long time, like a lot of brainstorming. There may or may not have been something in my cup when I was looking to write these bad boys. But here you go. You ready?
I'm ready. Hit me.
If you think my t-shirt makes a statement, wait till you hear me roar.
I love that we've been talking about doing this podcast for like 4 months, and we're finally getting together and doing this, and already starting off the bat with a Real Housewife intro. I love it.
I mean, why did we do this? Like, I think people are like, I mean, I know people are super intrigued at you getting out there and doing this and me getting out there and doing this, but why? I feel like our story, and if you don't mind me telling it, I would like to tell
Don't
it.
mind.
Is that cool? Okay.
Tell it.
So
Love it.
Mac and I met, I'm not even going to tell y'all because there's going to be a ton of youngsters that are going to be tuning in to vibe with us and learn about all the things, but it was
wasn't
many,
this
many years
century, though.
ago.
It wasn't in the 1900s that we met. So there's that.
No, it was not. But it was in 19, it was in, wait,
Nope.
no, it was in the 2000s. I'm like,
It
wait,
was
it was
in
in
the
the
2000s. Yeah.
I'm doing the mental math. I'm like, oh yeah, it was in the 2000s. So Mac was looking after and running communications for SiriusXM, and I worked for a company called Play Network back then that's now owned by Mood Media, and we were effectively acquiring the opportunity to do business as the commercial arm for SiriusXM. And Mac and I, we got together and, the first time had a great business meeting, and we kind of connected on a very, on a deep level over those first few cocktails that we had. But I remember the day that Matt called me, and one of those moments, and this is just to say for all of those out there in marketing, like, we all make mistakes and things happen. I remember Matt calling me saying, hey, y'all put the press release to Wire about this little acquisition piece, and nobody on our side approved it. And I'm like, oh no, that was not a good thing. So we had some more cocktails and laughed about that. And then fast forward all these years later, and Mac and I think you and I got on a call probably 9 months ago.
Yeah.
And
sounds about right.
all we did was laugh.
Yeah.
We just laughed and honestly talk poo-poo about a lot of things that we were seeing in the world and how strange marketing is and how it's evolved. And we just kind of started riffing about, wouldn't it be fun to do something that was a little bit different? So and when Mac was introducing, I think we're going to talk about like why the startup marketer, and you're going to kind of preview the startup marketer a little bit. Sure. But when Mac reached out and asked me if I would partner and be a part of what she was building at the startup marketer, it was a no-brainer. Like, it was anything that Mac puts her passion and her verve and her desire and her resilience behind. I was like, yeah, count me in. Whatever you need me to do. Do I need to learn to juggle, or what kind of tomfoolery are we going to get into? So I couldn't be more excited to have you talk a little bit about what the startup marketer and how different it's going to be, because having mentored marketers throughout my career and still do mentor marketers, this is this is a group, a community, a platform, whatever fancy term you want to use, that has so needed by so many. So I'm super excited for you to tell people what the heck it is. Yeah.
Heidi, you are so sweet, because I think when I think back to the conversation we had 9 or so months ago, you're so encouraging about the initial thoughts I had about Startup Marketer, because I didn't want to create another community. There are so many communities out there, but there is not real true community in the startup marketing space, right? So what we mean by startup marketer, it's marketing in startups for sure. We'll have some guests on this. We'll talk more about the guests later this season, but we're going to have people talking about going from corporate into startup land, which is a whole shock to the system. But anyways, what startup marketer is, I like to think of it as a little bit of a hybrid ecosystem, little bit accelerator, little bit community, but what we're trying to build is something that I haven't seen in market. So again, if anyone knows me, we're not going to do anything halfway here. And I want to go all in with this. So I want to create a place, an extension of place, to celebrate and help the startup marketer, because let's just be honest, this is a tough job. This is a tough job. Now, all marketers have tough jobs, and I don't mean to take away anything from our brand brethren up at the big companies, but the startup world, it's live or die, right? It's something like 90% of startups fail. I believe that if we can get marketers to learn from other marketers who've been there and done that, if we can give them resources, if we can give them access, if we can help them move faster, if we can help them cut corners, meaning learn from the people who have done this and find the shortcuts so you don't make the same lengthy mistakes. You don't cost your company lots of money and time that they don't have. This is the startup world is tough, but man, we love it. Right? We love it. So it's also part celebration of that. So what we're trying to create here in this podcast is actually another celebration extension of it as well, because really want to talk to the people who have done it, right? Who didn't give up, who had the big ideas on how to get their company well positioned and help the sales team and the product team move product or, connect with customers, really add those valuation points, maybe see through to an exit or an IPO. Like, people have done it and you don't hear from them very often, right? You hear the founder stories, and not to take anything away from founders, my God, right? What they go through, and the head of sales and the head of product and the head of technology. You hear those stories. What you don't often hear, in the ad ages and the ad week and the digidays of the world, is the story of the individual that maybe the first marketing hire or was brought in when the company was an A round, B round company, and had to build that company into a market, help establish the market and the company. I'm babbling, but the point is, I wanted to create some level of recognition that this is special and different. And I get excited by the startups that we work with. I get excited by the marketers I meet who are out there every day fighting the fight. And I think that needs to be celebrated and given a microphone and a video camera. I just dated myself there. A video camera, a camera, so people can see the people that are behind this work. And that's what this podcast is about, for sure.
Well, and sometimes you get to, like, this is my first big microphone. I feel like a big girl doing this. What I am super excited is to have a conversation about how much technology has emerged since you and I, the OGs, if you will, started out, right? I mean, pre-social media, old school direct mail, forget about video podcasts. It's just in watching the difference in terms of how people use tools to really evolve and work smarter. The other thing I'm really excited about, Mac, and that as you and I have been kind of laying out what we wanted from a topical perspective in the who's, is we're going to uncover and have some conversations that are going to be hard for some people. It's going to be hard. I mean, we're talking about a panel where we have marketing and sales and product all sitting on a panel throwing shade at each other, right? And the conversation about the CMO, the Mecca, that role. Well, not everybody wants to be a CMO. Not everybody should be a CMO. It's okay to not have the aspiration.
Right? Not every startup needs a CMO either.
Yeah. So I am most excited about the crazy kind of lineup and topics. Mac and I have even committed to do a couple of these live together, which will be fun. And, I think at least my hope is that as you guys tune in, tell us what who'd you like to see? Who'd you like to hear from? Who would you like to have a conversation with? You and I both been in marketing a really long time. And, I was given some advice to somebody just yesterday and about kind of their offering, if you will, as a fractional, and not a fractional exec, a fractional like director or marketing manager, and how to take their service offering out. And I think you and I, Matt, could probably say I sat down when I decided to stand up the lioness again and wanted to make note of what I didn't love about marketing, the areas I wasn't great. And I think that's another thing and what are we, the startup marketer, you said we don't like community necessarily. What is the word we want to use here? I want to make sure I'm being respectful of the term.
I think we use ecosystem because at the end of the day, and I'm glad that you brought up one of the panels we're going to do later with sales and marketing, because I think oftentimes, and I've been guilty of this myself throughout my career, is we get into our silos as marketers and we think of ourselves as a vertical. I think the more seasoned I get, I think of marketing as a horizontal, and I think it touches every component of a company if done correctly. And that's how marketing becomes that enviable growth lever, right? When it's just infused in the fabric of a company. I forget the question you asked me, but the point was,
ecosystem. You answered it. See, you
right.
don't even know. You and I just bantering, you answer a question and you don't even know.
In order for marketers to be really successful, and I think we're going to find this as a theme throughout the entire season when we interview some of our guests, which we're really excited to share with everybody. I think we're going to find that people didn't do it alone, right? Marketing can't work in a vacuum. And I think startup marketers need access to know how others did things, to know what doesn't work any longer. Don't waste your time here, to network with people that have been there, done that. But also, I want to hear from some of the up and coming people in our industry and the things that they're seeing and the things they're trialing and failing with or succeeding with. I think could be a cool platform, and the ecosystem should be about sharing. This is about put it all out there. There are no secrets here. Like, we are not going to gatekeep. That's what Startup Marketer is, right? We took 15 years of templates and best practices and playbooks, and we put them in the community. You can just download them. And in fact, we had one of our members right away was like, I love these, but I don't have this template. We're like, oh, okay, we'll just go build it. And she's like, well, how much is that going to cost? I'm like, no, that's part of your membership here. Like, we're going to think of us as like a whole group of, marketers with at least 12 plus years of experience behind the ecosystem, in the ecosystem, that want everyone to be successful. This is not about gatekeeping. The courses, right? 50 plus, I think we're at 60 free courses now and more coming. We launched the job board. We have an affiliate program where we're going to get software discounts for startup marketers because we know every penny counts, right? So this is more than just a community. And yes, we built on Mighty Networks. So there's an entire, community aspect to it. And that's really important because I think for real-time feedback and real-time collaboration, that's important. But we, as the marketers behind it, are going to continue to fuel the industry and the market and the ecosystem with knowledge, and in the spirit of how can we be the most helpful.
Yeah. And my hope in this too is, I don't know why I immediately went to The Odd Couple, which I'm going to date myself here, but you and I, as kind of Oscar and Felix, you'll probably see I'm probably a little bit more provocative than Mac is, but she grew up through the communications realm. So like you'll think you guys will see and enjoy the yin and yang between the two of us. But, I liked how you talked about how looking across the entire kind of blanket, if you will, of marketing, because I think so much, at least, I mentioned that I do a bunch of work with kind of high school DECA, and I love asking kids, we're going to call them kids, teenagers, whatever, pre-college, why marketing? And the answer always is because I can go make a lot of money. And my answer back to them is you can go make a lot of money in anything that you're passionate about. Right. And let's just be frank, in marketing, you got to prove yourself consistently. Because push comes to shove, and let's just call a spade. In 2024, the market's rough right now. Mac just put a beautiful post out where we were scholarshiping some memberships because it is a tough flipping market right now. It's tough to get a job in marketing. It's tough to hang on to a job. It's tough to get some dollars to further that education. And so that's one of the things that's beautiful, is this is a nice opportunity to come in and ask questions of other brethren of folks that are in the marketing function. Folks like Mac and myself, who admittedly I've made a lot of mistakes. And I love talking about those mistakes now and help people not do the same thing.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking about I feel like marketing has always had, and we always have an albatross around our neck, right? We're always constantly thinking about how can our programs be different? How can our programs drive return? And how can I ensure that myself and my team has a job next week? Because it's one of those expendable functions. Every function is expendable, but a lot of individuals look at marketing as much more of a revolving door. And so, it's our job to give you all the tools, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's a luxury. It's a nice to have. And
exactly.
Which is so interesting to me, because I think I think we'll see this as a theme when we start really interviewing folks this season, that the people we're going to be talking to have faced every single uphill battle that we have, right? And we know this in startup world. There's no budget. There's no such thing as, you don't have the luxury of a quarter or 2 or 3 to plan something, right? That, you said it before, the test, you're constantly optimizing and testing and learning. And I think oftentimes there's a lot of podcasts out there on the startup world and on marketing in general. And I feel like in a lot of ways, and I hate to say this because it's such an overused phraseology, if you will, but the art and science, like we have definitely trended much more towards the science. And I will tell you, the science data tells you a lot, and it does. And I'm not discounting that at all. But I think we're going to see a theme this season in the interviews that without the art, you're not able to get the mind share of the customer. You're not able, and by the way, that, the proverbial funnel, right, doesn't stop at the conversion. Marketing continues all through the life cycle of that customer in partnership with other groups internally, obviously. But you win the hearts and minds, and your retention numbers are through the roof, and your word of mouth is through the roof. That's when marketing is working for your company, right? So the opinion of what marketing is or isn't, we're going to have a lot of debate on that this season, right? On the differing opinions. And Greg on our team talks about, on one end, you have trash and trinkets marketing, right? Which is, it's the swag, but there's nothing else behind it, right? It's just making things look good and pretty and packaged, all the way through the big M of marketing, which is the big strategic, who are we acquiring? Those are different skill sets. Those are different kinds of marketers too. So what is marketing in your organization? What marketing is and what it should be? I think that's part of the challenge that we're going to talk through, because I think at every company, depending on the founder, depending on the board, depending on the team, composition, marketing may look a little different. And
Oh my
that's
gosh.
not
And thank you for touching on, I'm sorry to interrupt you,
no,
Mac,
it's okay. Yeah.
the whole customer marketing and retention aspect of it, because I feel like particularly in startups, founders, and again, this is no disrespect on founders because both Mac and myself have been founders a couple of different times, is the focus is on acquiring a new customer. And the focus and the investments are all around winning the heart the first time and not the actual retention of that customer. So I think that we need to figure out how to cook up a conversation, acquisition and customer and retention, because 5 times more expensive to acquire a new customer, yet you still, you have heads of sales and folks that want to just go pump a bunch of money into the engines, and they want to do social media marketing, want to do all these things for that first impression. But then they're not really looking under the hood and recognizing that there's a product stickiness issue, or there's just a lot of levers you can pull. I love that you touched on that.
And I think this is going to be fun too, because I'm hoping to learn a lot. And that's the other reason I set up Startup Marketer. Like, is as much as we have great experience, right? We still don't have all the answers. I would argue nobody does. And if anybody tells you they do, I have questions, because marketing keeps changing. You said it, right? All the technologies. There's something like 4,000 MarTech companies, 4,000 MarTech plus MarTech companies, right? How do we, who barely have time, do you even know what a lunch break is? Do we even know what it means to be able to take breaks? The startup world is just different, right? And I think assessing those tools and figuring out what's a nice to have, what's going to drive the efficiency, what's going to help me put up more points and make more impact. Let's have real debate on that. Let's have some real discussion about what are the tools that are going to help you, and how, right? How to have those conversations with your founders and bosses, and your colleagues, because that's a whole other monster. How to work with the CFO, how to work with the CPO. One of our guests we're having on shortly is Chief Product Officer at multiple companies. He is always, and I worked with him at one company, he really knows how to work with marketing. He really has the respect, and I would say it's mutual. He's one of my favorite Chief Product Officers I've ever worked with. Sales, right? How do you work with sales? And sales, how do you work with marketing? Like, let's have that two-sided conversation, and let's get to what is at the core of that tension, right? What is at the core? We all know what it is, I think, but it isn't anything that people can't work through. We're all in the same team. And so often marketing becomes this cost center, redheaded stepchild, right? When things are great, everything's good with marketing, but things go bad, it's usually, that's the first place to start cutting, like you said.
Yeah. And I want to point out something that I probably should have done in my background, where I'm a marketer through and through. I have an undergraduate degree in finance, but I've been running sales teams and marketing teams in the last 3 roles I've held. And I've got voluntold into my first sales leadership role across both. And the reference that I use is that marketing and sales is always like monkeys slinging poo at the zoo. Sales folk are always pissed because marketing is not generating enough leads, and marketing's pissed because sales isn't working the leads generated. And I'm here to tell you that both have to show up. It's not a PB&J sandwich without peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah.
And so like, I'm not going to come in and be like, sales sucks and bash on sales. I've been on both sides, but I can tell you that it's never always marketing's fault. It's never always sales fault. That will be a fun
Amen.
conversation to have. But I'm also here to say, and Matt can appreciate this, there is not one piece of collateral we in marketing can build that will sell a product. There is not one. Like if it's a SaaS product, great, maybe. But if you're a sales rep that you're like, I just need that deck to close more business, those are going to be we're going to talk about that stuff. And which is also to help the marketeers out in the ecosystem feel comfortable to have those conversations, to have a conversation where you're at the table with our sales leadership, right? Because we've heard it. Mac and I have heard it all. Yep. And we've had to have all the conversations around that table to make sure that we can co-assimilate. But I've always said that without a good product, there's nothing for marketing to market. Without marketing, nothing is moving off the shelf, right? Everybody kind of works together.
Go back to what you just said. And this, I think this is why you and I love the startup space so much. If you don't have a great product, no, there's no other sentence after that, because there's no marketing, there's no sales, there's nothing in the world, put the lipstick on the pig, whatever kind of analogy you want to use or colloquialism you want to use, but it is a fact. And that's why product, to me, I have the utmost respect for companies that can build with user, lots of user input. They're constantly testing in the features and functionality. And can they, whatever there is, if it's an efficiency product, can they drive that much more? Companies with great product, and you can see that in the startup space, right? You can see and touch and feel those products. And I love that. And I think that's why I get so jazzed about this. And we know in the sales and marketing world, that one deal can make or break a company. Well, if marketing isn't thinking about that one deal as passionately as that sales leader is, right, then getting everybody rowing in the same direction gets much harder to do, and it takes much longer, and it becomes there's much more unnatural friction that occurs that shouldn't occur if you're not all on the same page. So,
do you know what happens if you're not rowing the boat in the same direction? I've used this analogy so many times in business. Do you know what happens?
You spin.
You never get to the margarita on the other side of the lake.
It's fair.
It's like the other analogy I like to use is like when you think about like a marathon, like you KPI and goal setting. You talked about the science for the data, the science versus the art. So I also love on the other flex when you've got like all of this amazing stuff, but there's like 47 different pieces of data and no one's really captures it correctly. And I'm like, well, without good data, without a starting line and without a finish line, you show up with your cute Lulus and your shoes all boozed out and there's no finish line.
Yeah.
You just keep running and running and running. I don't know about you, girl, but I don't like to run that far. So
unnecessarily no. So, all right, let's talk about some other topics we're going to be talking about. So, how to present to the board, how to manage up, right? I think these are really important things. Nobody teaches startup marketers general business, right? Like how to think about how your work on a day-to-day basis moves the company forward. So I talked about that number, right? 90% of startups fail. What if all of us startup marketers got together? This is where I think the power of startup marketer really comes together. What if we all got together and start to help each other figure out what really matters, where to improve, how to continuously become stronger and stronger marketers? I'll tell you what I think will happen. I think we can decrease the failure rate so we can increase the success rate. Let's speak like marketers, always in the positive, right? We can increase the success rate. That's where marketing earns its seat at the table, folks. That's where. It's not, did you have the prettiest ad? It's not, was your booth full the whole time? Like those are not metrics that matter. Trust and believe, if you can show impact, marketing keeps that seat at the table. Marketing keeps getting funded. So let's have frank conversations about what that looks like. And let's bring people in that have done it to talk about small programs, big programs, small dollar, high impact. Like let's really knock the cover off this and and show people that have done it, and have them talk through exactly what they did. Because we're not
How to
guilty.
ask the hard questions, right? How to
Yeah.
ask the hard questions in the big room. Don't be afraid.
Yep.
Ask them in a respectful way. Yeah.
I think the different types of marketing roles and what their functions really should be at different stages of growth. The hill I'll die on. I wrote an article on this for Fast Company, but I truly do believe your first marketing hire should be a product marketer. It should not be a social media manager. It should not be content. It should be someone that can understand every single thing that product does, and then turn around and talk to every possible customer on the planet, so that when product market fit is starting to come together, you have all of the original data from day one, right? You've got a system. This person's building all your marketing foundations. You've got a system that's collecting data from day one. So when you're hiring people, you have the historical data from day one. So that's one, center of truth. The other thing is you have somebody that speaks the language of the customer from day one, and they know that product as well as the product team does. So when you eventually hire your sales force, you talked about that one piece of collateral, right? Well, that product marketer already knows what the customer's asking for, and how the product is working with the customer today, what kind of results they're getting. They can work then with sales from that day forward to build sales enablement programs to make sales jobs easier, which is what I think product marketing's job is.
Just on that topic, curious, what percentage of startups do you think understand the difference between product management and product marketing?
Less than 10%.
I think that is also a challenge.
Let's talk about the roles. And let's have frank conversations, because there's trade-offs, right? I think if you could find a strong product manager, product marketer, early stage, that might solve some of that. But I do think, I think the product marketing function overall is one of the least well understood.
I agree.
It's the last one to get hired. It typically gets hired when a company's at like a C, not seed, C stage, which is far too late. I mean, better late than never. But if you had that person early on, and they grew within the company as the company grew, they have all that historical knowledge of the product evolution and the customer evolution. And I think that is just indispensable knowledge to have.
What else have we been talking about? Who else are we going to have on? We've been like,
we have all kinds of people. So we also have, we have founders that started as marketers that went on to found companies, and they can talk about how they had to transition and look at marketing differently when they were running product companies, and how having a marketing background actually really helped them. So one of the women we're going to have on sold her company to a huge, well-known brand. And she started as a very young marketer, started this company, with a co-founder, and they've just been enormously successful. I'm such a huge fan. So she'll be on.
It's really hard as a founder, and I'm sure you can appreciate this. A marketer through and through, I can't market my own business. I'm not great at that. So I think it's also we'll have probably some conversations about when to hire out, when to ask for help, when to have it be not okay to not have to do all the things. I have seen more job postings in this market where the job description is everything. They want someone, it's a marketing manager title, that can do everything from build a Google ad architecture to write email copy to product marketing specific things. As a marketing manager on a marketing manager salary, that's just talk about a needle in a haystack. Yeah. That's just talk about setting somebody up for not success. And so,
I think that's a big one. I think it's how to set your marketing department up for success at every stage of growth. I think that has to be a key part of this podcast, and having some tough conversations about that, because I think we all know some of the classic traps. Hire the young person who is the least expensive to come in and hand them the keys to making your company successful. That seems like a little bit of a risk, to say the least.
And then on the other side, right, Mac? You go and hire you blow your entire budget that your investors have told you need to spend on marketing on a big ticket CMO that has not been in the weeds in years. and
true.
expect them. And I mean, we've seen both of those things, right?
So,
And
we
it's,
so have.
yeah, yeah.
I think we're going to talk about how to build community. I think we're going to talk about CX. I think we talk about the intersection of marketing and customer success, right? Like how those two functions can completely transform a company. And I think you look at companies like Zappos, that is now obviously a huge, well-known brand, but man, they got that from day one. They infused what that customer experience was going to be into their entire go-to-market, and hugely successful, well-known brand from that. But I think that we can talk to some other companies that are doing that now. I think the art of launch, man, launch is hard. It's hard.
Well, and half the time it's because the expectations, I mean, it's, you bring a new product to market, particularly if you're bringing an inventive patented product to market, where you not only have to create market awareness of something that doesn't exist today, something new and cool,
Yep.
but you have to create the intent and desire for someone to want to buy something they don't know that they want to buy. It's I one of the roles that I had previously was at a company that sold it was a donor platform, and it happened to be a donor platform that sold into some not-for-profit institutions and during COVID. And when you're selling a donor platform, the ability for during lockdown for a not-for-profit to still be able to do business and conduct business when their doors couldn't be open was a big concept. But it was a concept that was very foreign to people that had never had to do that before. And so, it where it was a very innovative product, you were up against the fact that you were selling into an audience that didn't realize why they needed that. They needed that to fund the items that were driving in the community very specifically. So it's just, I think product marketing, I can, to your point, it's hard to find really good product marketers.
Yep.
And a lot of times it's because product marketing is so misunderstood. I think is kind of
So
the word.
misunderstood.
That's the word I would use to describe that.
And I would say it on both sides. I think that there's some product marketers that specialize in different areas of product marketing, but then I think there's also a very different expectation for what that product marketing role should be at companies. And I feel like product marketers get so overloaded, sort of like the catch-all digital marketing, right? So you're the head of digital marketing. I don't even know what that means. Everything is digital now, so that you've quite a lot. Typically, that means demand gen, social, right? Website. It means the things, but they put it all into one bucket. And that's what happens to product marketers too, is they get everything put on their plates and undersourced, right? Very under-resourced. And their expectations are massive too. So I think there's a lot of misunderstanding around that role. So I think we'll definitely dive into product marketing in a big way this season.
But y'all, marketing is fun though. I think that's why we do it.
It is fun.
Right? Isn't that why we do it, Mac?
Well.
Isn't that why that's why we do it, Mac? Come on. Marketing is fun. Here we are.
It's fun, but I think you have to be built for startup, right?
Yeah.
I think about you, right? We think about that one word, right? About what describes somebody, right? You just keep growing. Your like endurance is incredible to watch, right? You're just built differently. And I think you have to be a successful startup marketer.
And yours is resilience. Am I right?
Yeah. I don't stop. Things bounce off. You just keep going. Yeah.
You got to be resilient. Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe we should tell people what this podcast is not going to be.
Oh, I like that. We're not going to be complaining about our lack of resources. It is what it is. We're not going to be smoothing over. Like, we need to challenge each other. And I like what you said earlier, right? That you are more provocative. I think we do have to challenge each other. If we're really going to help marketers, cut the jargon, cut the crap. Like, what works, what doesn't work? What were some times that things didn't go well? I'm happy to share. I have plenty of failures. I go in many bags for the failures, right? And the different types of marketing roles. I think that this is a fun one, because I think the different people that we talk to at different kinds of companies at different stages of company growth, they're going to have a different view on what those roles are. So I also think we're not going to fall down the trap of hustle culture, right? We're not going to talk about the fact that this is a one size fits all. It's not. There's not one cheat code. There's not one path. And if that's what people think startup marketing is, they are absolutely incorrect.
And it's not just going to be for the ladies. As much as Mac and I would love to have all the glorious women that we've worked alongside and for in our career, our first guest might not be a gal, right? So
he might not be, but I got to tell you, if you're going to listen to an episode in the next couple weeks when we launch that one, you're going to learn a lot. He is
maybe not hustle, but he's on the grind for sure. Holy moly.
From up here to down under and everywhere in between.
Real talk, when Mac and I started talking about doing this, I said, I don't know how I'm not going to say all the bad words, because anybody that knows me.
I'm bad too.
And she was like, we got to be kind of clean because of the platforms. And I'm like, oh, but what fun is that? But we've been pretty clean today. I did let one slip out.
Listen, I mean, I've had to dig my fingernails into my finger a little bit to remind myself not to swear. trying to show up with some positivity and not swearing, but it's going to be a challenge.
I don't know what you would look like not positive. You're like one of the most positive people. What does that even look like?
Well, listen, I have 2 names. We'll delve into that probably this season too. Like, what's in a name and why? And why is it important? Because, man, I think it's important. So
what else do they need to know? What else should we, how frequently are we going to do this bad boy?
We're going to do this weekly. We're crazy. We're going to be recording at night and running during the day. I probably will be filling this with other things besides water in the future to encourage more sharing, so we can mix that up. I think we're going to evolve this with our listeners. I want to hear from the listeners. I really welcome opinions on people we should interview, on topics we should discuss. I want this to be more collaborative than just you and I talking at people. Like, this is an ecosystem, right? An ecosystem. Then let's
cheesy corporate questions and soggy toast.
No soggy toast here.
No soggy toast. So if you guys watch any of the episodes that Mac and I put out in the ecosystem in the world and they suck and they feel very soggy, you need to tell us that.
Yeah. I think that's what it's not going to be. It's not going to be lectures. It's going to be sharing. And look, not everything is going to work for you. So take everything with a grain of salt, right? I think that's a really important message, that there is no magic formula. There is no one way to approach startup marketing, except that you got to listen, you got to test, and you have to be resilient and move with endurance, because this is a marathon. This is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to getting started.
Let's get started. So where to find us? We're going to be on all the streaming platforms. So Spotify, Apple, iHeart, all the places. So hopefully people tune in and send us feedback. So we'll post this when they're live every Thursday, I think is what we're shooting for.
We're going to this time next year, we're going to be celebrating with some VOOV or something, man. 52 episodes of goodness.
But look, at the end of the day, I think we're doing this on video for a couple reasons. We want to show the people behind this, right? It's not just to hear their voice, it's to look them in the eye as well, and to see that this is actually a pretty cool industry of people at different ages, different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different races, different cultures, different whatever. But the shared stories are the same. And I think that's really cool. And I think people should see themselves out in the market. So we're going to look to bring in people that have great things to share that don't look like everybody we see on stage all the time either, right? So cheers.
But I got to tell you, she's going to be drinking potentially when it's drink time. I'm going to be drinking when it's Pacific time. Woo!
I mean, you are 3 hours behind me, so.
Yep. Yes, I am.
Heidi, before we break today, what's your music? Like, what do you, when you're in the zone, when you're working, do you listen to music when you're working?
When do I not listen to music? All the time. What is your
music? Are you like an 80s queen? Like you listen to older music, or what's
let's see what you'd think. Take a guess. What do you think? Well, wait, what am I working on? because there's a different vibe depending on what I'm working on. So what am I working on?
You're writing, I don't know, thought leadership.
Tupac.
Would not have guessed that.
So honestly, it's probably the dirtier rap, the better, old school. So, and now that Snoop is like in every feed that you see because of, did you see the hilarity that was him and Martha Stewart talking about equestrian on the, that was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Them. I love
both
of
my
them
gosh.
so much. I love them as friends. I love them individually. Yes.
Him and his, oh my God, I was dying. So I love me some Snoop. I love me some Tupac. I don't know what it is about it. It's strange. I put that on, got my candles lit. I'm good to go. How about yourself? What about you?
I'm such a nerd. I'm like an alternative music chick. So I love like the Echo and the Bunnymans of the world and the Cure and Depeche Mode. And
you call that alternative? That's new wave, yo.
Yeah. And then
I love me some Flock of Seagulls. What?
I love Flock of Seagulls. And I also love like Alt Nation on Sirius XM. Like I am constantly pulling good music, new music from there. So, but I'm a huge Motown person. So I listen to a ton of Motown. Those are my two go-tos. So alternative and Motown.
I should say I don't only listen to dirty rap. Randomly, the other side of the spectrum for me is piano or classical. Could those not be more different? I love George Winston. I love everything about George Winston and his, I like Riopy, Riopy. And I like to give a little shout out to Peloton in New York. Like I used to take Christine's rides and she would do classical music rides and have Riopy in her rides. And that's kind of how I kind of got into the whole classical music and some of the more piano vibey stuff, which is a very different set of writing. But you know, this is when I'm writing authentic stuff. This is not chat GPTing anything. We have to have a conversation about that at some point.
You know, AI.
There's going to be a shirt that's going to be something chat GPT. I don't know what it's going to be, but they're going to be making a statement on the shirt.
I think that's a good point. I think we should talk about generative AI. I think we should talk about other forms of AI, how marketers are sorting through this today, what is being asked of them, where they're.
How about security? Like even cybersecurity and how, like, when you think about standing up different programs that you have, and if you've got an e-com platform, and like, it's crazy. Like you probably have some friends that work for security companies and storage companies. Holy mac! I mean, what was the thing that we just went down when, all the airplanes were grounded and things?
Oh, yeah.
Holy macanoli. Yeah. And out here in Scottsdale, they have Waymos. You know what that is?
I saw them. I was just in LA last week. I saw them in LA, and then I saw the little robot delivery driver things, the little carts with the little eyes on them. They're so cute, and they're all over LA.
But do you know how scary it is? And I know, and my 19-year-old son loves all of it. Like he will get in a car and do the things. You roll up next to one of these Waymos that are Jaguars, by the way. It's not like they went and they did an inexpensive car that they pimped out. You look to the right and there is nobody driving the car. The first time you see that, holy moly, that's scary. I'm like, no.
Listen. Nope. We gotta roll with the technology. We're rolling with it.
It is amazing, but I'm like, I feel like it needs to be pressure tested a little bit more before I get in there.
It's fair.
You know? Yeah.
All right, let's wind down this first episode. So I think in summary, Mac,
HK,
the Heidi Keele. I think this is a conversation. We're really looking forward to interacting with everyone that's listening. Hopefully people are still hanging on there, and really excited for you to meet our guests this season. Really want your input, really want your participation, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. See you on the marketer side.